In front of the 9/11 Commission, why did the Bush administration change its mind? And it has gone almost unreported, but there is a civil war within the Democratic Party. We'll talk with a man who knows the situation firsthand. Caution, you're about to enter a no-spin zone. The factor begins right now. Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. The White House reverses its field. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. Condoleezza Rice will now testify in front of the 9/11 Commission. Talking Points suggested that course of action a couple of weeks ago, and so did most other political observers. The Bush administration has little to lose by allowing Dr. Rice to testify. She's told her story time and time again. That story's not going to change under oath. This whole Richard Clarke ordeal has not hurt President Bush, according to the polls. Most Americans see Clarke for who he is, an opportunist. That's not to say Clarke doesn't know what he's talking about on terrorism. He does, but he's now become a political creature, and that undermines his war on terror credentials. Now, here's something you might not know. Richard Clarke's publisher, Simon & Schuster, has refused to put him on the Fox News channel at all. That's almost unheard of in the publishing industry. You can understand why he wouldn't come on The Factor, because we'd make him sweat, but all the other programs on this network? There's something wrong with that strategy. Fox News Channel sells books, and everybody in the publishing world knows it. So Talking Points remains suspicious of this whole Clarke deal and is going to put it to bed this evening. Enough's enough. And unless there are new developments, Richard Clarke is now a footnote to us. In the end, this whole brouhaha won't affect the election one bit. Americans want to know who's going to protect them in the future. That's the most important issue right now, along with the economy. We're happy Dr. Rice is going to testify before the 9/11 Commission because it might diminish the partisan blather. Politics and terrorism are not a good combination. When people want to kill you, ideology should step aside, and most Americans realize that. And that's the memo. Now for the top story tonight. Karen Hughes is one of President Bush's closest friends. She's worked with him for 10 years and left the White House in 2002 to spend more time with her family in Austin, Texas. But now the president is facing another tight election, and Ms. Hughes is returning to his campaign. She also has a brand new book out called 10 Minutes from Normal, and we'll explain that title. It's very clever, and Ms. Hughes joins us now. Does the president have a stubborn streak in him? I mean, you look at the Rice situation, you think, why not let her testify? Why draw it out for 2 weeks and give the other camp time to bludgeon him?
Because the president cares about principle, and he was trying to find a way to balance the important principle that both he and Dr. Rice have sworn to uphold, and that's the separation of the powers of the executive and legislative branch. And I think there's a strong feeling in the White House among the attorneys and others that over the course of the last 20 or 30 years, Congress has steadily usurped the power of the executive branch. At the same time, the president very much wanted to make the facts known to the American people. He wants to cooperate with this investigation, and I'm actually, as her friend, very relieved for
Yeah,
Dr.
but why did it take
Rice,
them 2 weeks? It should have taken them 2 days to figure this out. Because all they asked for, and what they asked for, was a letter saying this isn't going to be a precedent and that nobody else would be intruded upon like the other councils.
But they've been working to find a way that they could balance the principle along with making Dr. Rice available.
Now, if you were there, Karen, I think it would have taken them quicker. You would have gotten to it quicker,
it's really
right?
funny, this Washington blame game business, Bill. You know how that goes. Now that I'm gone, they say if Karen was there, it would be different.
That's
when I was
right.
there, they were saying it's all Karen's fault.
No, it's all guys there. That's the problem. These testosterone guys. You can't tell me President Bush not stubborn. He's stubborn. He got a stubborn streak in him.
He's a man of strong convictions. How about
that? Means he's stubborn, ladies
How about
and gentlemen.
that?
He's stubborn. Because look at the weapons of mass destruction deal. Now, I had to come on this broadcast a couple of months ago and say, my analysis was wrong, and it was. All right, I believe the CIA blew it. And I said, hey, that's what it's all about when you make a mistake, but we don't hear that from President Bush. Shouldn't
we still don't know the final answer, and let me say a word about that. David Kaye came back from Iraq and made two very important conclusions. He said we were wrong about the weapons, and by the way, we is a lot more than the Bush administration.
Sure, that's true.
It includes a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Former President Clinton, UN Security Council,
Tony
President
Blair,
of France,
MI5.
President of Germany, every respected intelligence agency in the world. But David Kaye made 2 points, and I worry that because of the media coverage, that the American people only heard one of them. He said wrong about the weapons, he thinks, and there's still disagreement about that in Washington, but he also said right about the war, that Iraq was an even more dangerous place, that it was chaotic.
I believe
that terrorists would have perhaps been able to access information that
Sure.
would help them with weapons of mass
But most
destruction
Americans see
activities.
that. But why?
No, well, I don't know that most Americans saw that, because the cover of Newsweek said
But the polls
we
say
were
they
all
do.
wrong.
The polls say most Americans understand that Saddam was a danger to the world.
I believe that, and I agree with that.
But why wouldn't President Bush come
out?
out and again disarm all of the people overseas who hate us and his political opponents by saying, Intelligence wasn't right. Sometimes that happens. We're gonna work to correct the problem. Wouldn't that be the best way to do it?
Well, I think that's what he did. And in appointing a commission, though, what he said is we're going to look at this and we're going to find the facts, and we're still working. You know, we still have people working in Iraq, and
they didn't admit a mistake.
You shake your head,
there.
but I see the CIA director, and he says we still have more work to do.
Why isn't he fired?
And, well, because he's doing a good job.
Really?
We're counting on him and his agency.
Well, wait a minute now.
We're counting on him.
He's 0 for 3, though. He bombs the Chinese embassy under Clinton, all right, in Belgrade. They didn't know where it was. 9/11 happens. The CIA is caught unaware. And the weapons of mass destruction go down a drain. He's doing a good job.
Well, Bill, I think it should not surprise you that no one in your government, we're all human beings. That's one of the reasons I wanted to write a book, to explain we're all human beings.
Well, that's true.
No one is perfect. But
those are three big ones.
One of the tragedies of the whole Richard Clarke, what I view were distortions, and I was there. I don't believe much of what he said is accurate, and it's been a distortion. One of the tragedies of it is it's led to a sense of misplaced responsibility. No one in our government was responsible for the Al-Qaeda attacks. Al-Qaeda was responsible for the Al-Qaeda attacks.
I agree with you 100%
Not the Bush administration, not even the Clinton administration. And you know I'm not an apologist for the Clinton administration.
I agree with you on Clarke.
But we can't say the Clinton administration or the Bush administration
but again,
or anyone in our government was responsible.
If it were me, I would be more forthcoming than President Bush, because I think it just gives his enemies more ammo. Now, you are being brought back to help with the campaign. Another very tough campaign coming up. You would see that, right?
Well, and when I left the White House, I promised the president. One of the things he talked to me about was, "Will you join me on the campaign?" And I said,
but if
"Absolutely."
you said no, he was going to deport you.
Well, I don't know about that.
You'd be living in Portugal. But you would say that it's a tight campaign at this point, would you?
It's a tight campaign, and I think the electorate is very closely divided. If you look at all the...
But that's what I want to ask you about. President Bush ran on a platform that said he's a uniter, not a divider. But 4 years after he was elected, the country still as divided as it's ever been.
Well, and I think that's unfortunate. You know, and the only thing, it's one of my disappointments about the time in Washington. You know, I watched him govern as a bipartisan governor in Texas. I watched him work with a Democratic lieutenant governor and a Democratic speaker.
He was successful in Texas.
Exactly. But you know, you can reach out your hand, but somebody has to take it.
What do you think
and
is?
I saw him reach
why
his
do you
hand
think
out.
we're such a divided people?
There are a lot of reasons. I think the debate is very polarizing. I think the special interests in Washington are very polarizing. They push both parties to the extremes. The competitiveness of the news media pushes stridency, the lack of accountability in our public debate. When you have newspapers that regularly quote people anonymously, I've done it myself, and I admit that in my book, that myself, I have said things that are harsher under the cloak of anonymity than I would have said had they said Karen Hughes, advisor to President Bush, said about Al Gore today or Senator Kerry today. And so I've made a vow that I'm going to speak on the record from now on. And because I think it's a small thing, but it's one of the things that contributes to a debasing of our political debate.
I think you're right about the press. The press is driving the nastiness, particularly on the left at this juncture, that has embraced
the political leaders participated in it. I'm not pointing my fingers just at the press, but the competitiveness
the press has embraced this. He's a liar, he's this, he's that, you know, and they've run with it. But the American people are divided. We are a divided nation on how we look at politics and how we look at traditionalism and secularism and all of that. And I don't know why.
Well, I don't know that I can answer that. I mean, I think we are a divided country. Every election, certainly the 2000 election. I mean,
absolutely.
I sure remember that. I mean, the one thing that gets you through the last few months of that campaign is that you cling to the certainty that come election day, win or lose, and by the end you almost, but you know, not quite, but you almost don't care. And
that was agony for everybody.
You get to the end and you say, come election day, it's over, and then it wasn't, and it was awful.
Agony.
It was awful.
And that's one of the things you talk about in your book. And when we get back, we'll ask Ms. Hughes about her book. She has some very interesting things in there. And I also want to talk about the culture war a little bit. And so we'll take a quick break and come back with that. Also, we have Tyco ahead. Are these weasels going to get away with it? We'll take a look at a very bizarre trial upcoming.
O'Reilly Talking Points is brought to you by the new Chevrolet's 10 new cars and trucks in 20 months in American Revolution.
Introducing the Malibu Max. The only car that offers all of this. Remote start, sliding reclining rear seats, a 200 horsepower V6, and rear DVD. The new Chevrolets, an American Revolution.
Now I look back and I go, what was I thinking?
We baited them into it, basically. You know?
Well, see, I was on the board.
The skateboard went.
I went bam. I'm laid flat out.
I mean, it was impressive.
I tried to stand up and I couldn't.
He was like, somebody please get me up.
I can't work. I'm like, who's gonna pay for college now?
And we felt bad, too.
It was so bad.
It's a good thing we had the disability insurance.
Disability insurance from Mutual of Omaha.
We're going to get him back up.
Because life goes on. Begin today.
This is Relocation Central, also called Extended Stay America. It's sort of home between homes. Very comfortable. Separate workspace, full kitchen with refrigerator, plenty of room, even a recliner. And the price is great. So I can take my time looking for a permanent place, or not. With all I get at Extended Stay America, why would I stay anywhere else?
Where do you get your pet's flea, tick, and heartworm medications?
I have to get to the vet's office.
I saved a visit to my vet's office. I didn't have to leave home.
I just called 1-800-PET-MEDS, and my pet's medications are delivered right to my door.
1-800-PET-MEDS guarantees the lowest price on all your pet's medications. Order now and receive free shipping.
I'm Donna Fiducia. British police launch one of their biggest anti-terrorism operations since the September 11th attacks. 700 officers carried out 24 coordinated raids in and around London. Police arrested 8 British men of Pakistani descent. They're suspected of plotting a terror attack. Police also seized bomb-making materials, including a half-ton of ammonium nitrate. That's the same explosive used in the Oklahoma City bombing. A new report shows Canada isn't doing enough to keep people safe after 9/11. Canada's Auditor General says the country's borders are targets for terrorists. She says security agencies don't work together and there's, quote, disarray over screening people on watch lists. The Auditor General also adds that she hopes the government will address these issues. Well, John Kerry winning the support of the nation's leading abortion rights group. NARAL Pro-Choice America announced today it's endorsing the Democratic presidential hopeful. The group says it will work to get pro-abortion voters to support Kerry through a mix of TV ads and grassroots organizing. And Michael Jackson appearing on Capitol Hill today. He received a humanitarian award from the African Ambassador Spouses Association. He also discussed the fight against AIDS in Africa with member of the Congressional Black Caucus. All this, of course, as a grand jury in California hears testimony in the molestation case against him. We'll see you just after the bottom of the hour. O'Reilly continues now.
Continuing now with our lead story, we're talking with Karen Hughes, President Bush's close advisor and author of the brand new book, 10 Minutes from Normal. Now, the title of your book is taken from a train ride. You want to tell us about that?
We were on the train right after the Republican convention, and it was, you rhythmically rock along very slowly. It was right after the chaos of the convention, and we came into this little town in Illinois after a very sleepy day on the train tracks, and the conductor came over the loudspeaker and proudly announced, ladies and gentlemen, we are 10 minutes from normal. 10 minutes from normal. And I turned to friends at the moment and said, if I ever write a book,
that's it.
That's the title, because that's how I feel. I'm a normal person.
But you're living in a crazy world.
A normal person who, as I say, I have a normal family,
right.
A teenage son who thinks I'm totally annoying, especially when I ask intrusive questions like, how was your day? Every parent of a teenager knows that.
You don't want to bother them with that.
Exactly. But all of a sudden I have a boss who is running for president and becomes the president.
Plus
and
the world of Austin, Texas, and being a mom and being a mother is so divorced from this ruthless, and it is ruthless, you know it, all right? Let's get power, let's keep power. And that brings me to my question. I think this is going to be one of the dirtiest campaigns in the history of the country.
Well, I hope that's not the case, but I think the evidence we've already seen from the other side. I mean, when Senator Kerry says,
you guys give as good as you get.
Well, but I think we focus on issues, Bill. When you see Senator Kerry call us crooked and a bunch of liars, I take that personally. I'm neither crooked nor a bunch of liars, and we can have policy disagreements, and we can point out how Senator Kerry has flip-flopped on issues, saying he voted for the funding of the war before he voted against it.
He's going to say, well, that's a lie too, because you're missing the nuances of his vote. You know how it goes. But I'm more interested in the fact that you have to choose what you are going to have President Bush campaign on. Now, I assume he's going to go the terror warrior route. He has to. And the economy. Is there anything else, do you think, in this election beside those two issues?
Well, this has been an interesting time in the history of our country because the Homeland Security and national security have been such huge issues since September 11th that they've really obscured a lot of domestic debate. There are fundamental differences between the candidates on issues like education reform and health care and prescription drugs for Medicare, lots of issues. I think we will discuss those in the course of the campaign, but I think the two big issues are the issues you identified.
Okay. So
the stakes are huge in this election.
Right.
For my family and your family, it's who can wage and win this war against terror relentlessly.
So the gay marriage, culture war issues, they're going to take a back seat, correct?
Well, I think that there are lots of issues, again, in this election. And I think it's important. For example, President Bush took a stand on principle that he believes that marriage is
But he's not going to make that a forefront
between
issue.
a man and the woman. Well, I think a lot of elections are about what voters want to be the forefront issue. And since September 11th, foremost, I think, in voters' minds and what the election ultimately will come down to is who can best protect this country, who can wage a relentless war against, and it is a war. And I want to make that point because Senator Kerry has said he's uncomfortable with the word war.
When did he say that?
Well, Al-Qaeda does not share those sensibilities. I saw him quoted saying that a couple of weeks ago. That he was uncomfortable.
Would you dig that out upstairs?
Al-Qaeda does not share those sensibilities.
Look, it's World War III.
We're at war.
It's World War III.
And they declared war on us.
I always say you got to figure out who Osama would vote for next November, and you vote for the other guy. That's what you got to write.
Pretty good test.
Now,
I don't think he likes President Bush very much.
One of the vulnerabilities that President Bush has, which cannot be exploited by the Democratic Party, is the border situation. Now, you're a Texan, and now we have, by the Border Patrol's estimate, 1 million people coming in here a month through that border. In 4 years, President Bush has not secured it. Why?
Well, Bill, I think it's a little further back that the
there's been but he had 4 years to do something
in securing the border. And what he has done now is try to propose a realistic policy that recognizes the situation and focuses Border Patrol on the threat. And the true threat, the big threat, is to focus our customs and our Border Patrol people on the possibility of terrorists crossing our border to come into our country, not on people who want to feed their families.
Do you really think he's done enough, though?
Well, I think given the aftermath of September 11th, it would have been difficult. You know, we've focused our resources on Homeland Security. We focused border crossing issues on Homeland Security. We're trying to make sure that people can't bring either people, terrorists, or weapons across our borders, and that has to be the focus.
1 million a month.
Well, and that's a concern, and that's why President Bush has proposed a policy to try to regularize and actually control the border in a way that recognizes the reality of the economy, which is that employers hire people and they need people to do labor in the economy. Recognizes that reality while also shutting down the border to those who are
Can you stay for another segment?
Sure.
I want to hold Ms. Hughes over for another segment upstairs, okay? And then we'll back the show down a little bit because I have some more questions, and I think they're very important questions, and you're quite candidly a lot more candid than I thought you were going to be. I thought you were going to come in here with the Dick Cheney talking points.
You're not believing that mainstream media, are you? The Nurse Ratched description?
I know you. You're not. I know you. You're not that way. And I don't believe anything the pinhead elite media tell me. I only believe what we find out on ourselves. So we're going to hold Karen Hughes over, talk about more on policy in her book in a moment. We'll be right back.
Takes minutes to open a Fidelity IRA, so do it today because you'd much rather be saying wow than oops. Call 800-586-0593 today.
Your picture is on my wall. It helps me remember you. I still love you the same.
you take Prilosec OTC for heartburn, there's something you should know. You have to keep taking it for 14 days, heartburn or not. I'd rather take one Pepcid just when I need it. Pepcid Complete starts controlling acid in seconds. Or there's new maximum strength Pepcid AC. It has double the strength of original Pepcid AC. Both last all day or all night. One. Now, that's a number I can live with. Pepcid, just one, and heartburn's done.
It's wild. It's crazy. It's everything on sale this Wednesday at Levitt's. The folks at Levitt's are going wild. They're cutting prices on everything. Living rooms on sale. Bedrooms on sale. Dining rooms on sale. Levitt's prices have been marked down so low, they're insane. And what's even wilder is you won't be paying for your furniture for 18 months. So get wild. Go crazy. Furnish your home tomorrow during Levitt's Wild Wednesday. Preview today, 10 till 9.
So, you want to open a checking account?
Yes, but I don't want to pay for it.
Right. And you want online banking?
Right, if it's free.
And unlimited online bill paying?
I don't want to have to pay for that either.
No. So you want total security protection on your check card, free?
Look, I just don't think I should have to pay for any of it.
Neither do we.
Free checking plus with direct deposit from Bank of America. Higher standards.
Now with Karen Hughes, a close friend and advisor of President Bush, whose new book is 10 Minutes to Normal. We're holding Ms. Hughes over because the conversation, I think, is very worthy this evening. Now, the Tyco story that we promoted, we will do tomorrow. That is unfolding situation, and I hope these weasels get nailed, but we'll see. Now, in any book, and take it from me, you know, I
You've written a number of them and sold a lot of them.
More than 3 million.
That's terrific.
You have to give people a reason to spend their $20. You know, $20 for people
is a lot of money.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So why should I spend $20 on your book?
Well, I hope because you'll be inspired, and you'll
Inspired
end up
how?
Inspired by believing that a person can make a difference. That the political process is full of people who, by and large, aren't the caricatures that you read about in the headlines or that get skewered in the editorial cartoons, but are real people people like me, who is shopping in the grocery store, squeezing tomatoes in the produce section while I'm on a conference call with Condi Rice and Colin Powell for the Sunday shows. I mean, that we're real people that do the best we can. That work hard to try to represent our country. That I talk a lot, Bill, about my faith and how it helps me set priorities in life, about the struggle that all of us face to balance career and family. You have that struggle yourself.
Yeah, I mean, we all do. And
we all face that struggle.
You're a pretty organized woman, but this isn't a tell-all book.
You don't organize teenagers very well.
No, you have to,
I'm learning.
Well, you have to put them in chains. You see, that's what you do. You put them in chains, and then this isn't a tell-all book. You're not hatcheting anybody in the book. It's not a lies book. It's more of an instructive book. But tell people how you got associated with President Bush. You were a reporter. I worked in Dallas at one time. You worked at Dallas Morning News, I think, right? Dallas Morning News?
I worked at KXAS-TV, the NBC affiliate, in Dallas-Fort Worth.
How did you hook up with President Bush?
Well, eventually, after I left journalism. After 7 years as a political reporter, I found myself inspired by the political process. And a lot of reporters become cynical. I admired the people who were willing to put their names on the line and endure the spears and the bad headlines and run for office. And so in 1984, I left and went to work for the Reagan-Bush presidential campaign. I was a flunky. I was a peon. The Texas press coordinator, never even met President Reagan, the presidential candidate that I worked for that year. Then did a whole lot of odd jobs and eventually the Will Consult for Food, sort of political consulting.
Right, I got it.
Then I became executive director of the Republican Party, and that's where I first met then George Bush.
The Republican Party in Texas.
In Texas, correct. Right. And that's where I first met then George Bush. When he ran for governor in 1994, he asked me to come join his campaign, and frankly, I wasn't sure that I wanted to. I thought I'd retired from campaigning. You know, that's too intense. It consumes you. But I ultimately decided that we really needed to defeat then Governor Ann Richards.
And so
and
you
that
signed on.
And I signed on, and we had a wonderful
now,
time.
you weren't always
For
a
6
Republican.
months,
You
we
write in your
traveled
book
together.
that you voted for Jimmy Carter.
I did. I said when I was young and irresponsible, I sometimes behaved young and irresponsibly. As my boss once said. That was my first vote. I was in college, influenced by
You don't have to apologize. Jimmy Carter was a very attractive candidate.
But I disagreed with a lot of his policies after he came in office,
pulled.
and I voted for every Republican ever since. And I am a Republican. I've always been a conservative person.
Did President Bush ever yell at you? Tell me the truth.
Sure. Oh, sure.
Does he yell? Does he yell and scream?
Occasionally. They used to say, send Karen into the propeller, which means send me in if he, for something that was going to provoke this hot that's the stupidest thing I ever heard.
So he raises his voice and
sure,
stuff?
he'll say, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. What do you want to do that for? And then he'll call me back about an hour later and say, now, why did you propose that? He almost always
Does
thinks
he
about
treat
it. and
you
gets
as a woman
back.
differently than he treats the Pinhead, Rove and these Card and these guys?
No, he treats all of his staff, I think, by and large, well, not only by and large.
Except Condoleezza Rice.
He treats us all with great respect. He's a thoughtful person to work for. I've worked for him for 10 years. I know him probably better than almost anyone except his wife and family.
Yeah.
And I'm only doing this because I think very highly of him, and I'm able to honestly tell you that I think more highly of both President and Mrs. Bush today than I did on the day I went to work for them, and we've been through a lot together.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on in here. The book is 10 Minutes to Normal, and if you're interested in the Bush campaign and President Bush and all of that, certainly going to be a bestseller, and we will see you then in the next 7 months on a campaign trail, won't we?
I promised the
You're not going to dodge the factor, right?
I'm not going to dodge the factor, and
All right.
I promised him when I left that I'd be at his side during the campaign, and I will be.
Okay. Karen, thanks very much. It's a
Thank
pleasure
you
to
so
speak with
much.
you, and thanks for coming in. Good luck
Thank
with
you.
the
Great
book.
to be here.
Plenty more ahead as the factor moves along this evening. A 14-year-old girl is a victim of a sexual assault, but her own school is attacking her. You won't believe this story. And new polls say President Bush is getting stronger despite the terrorism controversy. We'll find out why, and we hope you stay tuned for those reports.
It's hard enough rushing through a stressful world during your waking hours. So why add to that stress in bed, tossing and turning on an uncomfortable metal spring mattress? You deserve a good night's sleep. And that's just what you'll get with the Tempur-Pedic Swedish Sleep System, the only mattress that uses the gravity-defying Tempur material originally developed by NASA. Instead of uncomfortable metal springs, the Tempur-Pedic mattress uses billions of viscoelastic memory cells. This soft yet supportive material automatically adjusts to every curve of your body, providing a weightless-like sleep surface that you have to feel to believe.
It feels like it's actually forming its own glove to me.
I can't really find an uncomfortable position.
It's like nothing I've ever felt before in a mattress.
Now you can feel it for yourself. Call and we'll rush you a free sample of the revolutionary Tempur material along with this video and information kit. You'll learn how metal springs create pressure points that cause you to toss and turn. Tempur-Pedic reduces pressure points so you can get a better night's sleep.
The Tempur-Pedic mattress is unique in that it is firm, but yet it molds to your body, thus relieving those pressure points and allowing you to get a much better night's sleep.
First night was amazing. The second night, I woke up the next morning, no back pain. And I've always had back pain. I was sold after 2 nights.
And because Tempur-Pedic doesn't transfer motion, you'll never disturb your partner. Look how this glass of red wine doesn't tip over, even when she jumps up and down. Try that with a metal spring mattress. Don't be fooled by imitators. Only the Tempur-Pedic mattress uses the revolutionary Tempur material originally developed by NASA. Tempur-Pedic, changing the way the world sleeps.
Call 1-800-749-4664 for your free video information kit and Tempur material sample. Tempur-Pedic, the Consumer's Digest Best Buy Award winner.
Sunday at 8, surrounded inside the Iron Curtain, our troops face down Stalin's Red Army in a desperate fight for freedom. Secret operations, espionage, and perilous treachery. We go inside their heroic story on Berlin, the standoff behind the Iron Curtain.
Join me, Ollie North, for the next episode of War Stories on the Fox News Channel.
Fox News Channel's acclaimed series, War Stories with Oliver North, is now available on videotape. Call now, 1-800-933-0760. That's 1-800-933-0760.
Personal story segment tonight. A 14-year-old Michigan girl was attacked by 17-year-old Nicholas Boggs in a darkened high school room. The boy admitted he engaged in oral sex with the girl and was sentenced to a short period of time in jail and 3 years probation. But the young girl has run into trouble with the Pinckney School District, which says she herself engaged in gross sexual misconduct and has put that in her permanent record, even though police say she was not at fault. So the 14-year-old's family is suing that school district, and joining us now from Detroit is John Danielski, who is representing the family as its attorney. This is a troubling situation to me because in the girl's file, which goes to all the colleges she might apply to, it's there for almost everyone to see. You have gross sexual misconduct, and from what we can understand, the only culpability she has, counselor, is that she did accompany this boy to the darkened room freely. Is that what happened here, or am I missing something?
Well, what was going on is there was a substitute teacher in class where class was going on, and the substitute teacher fell asleep. So then some students snuck off into that back room. More than just her and this other student, there were a couple other students in that back room. And then while she was in this room, this 17-year-old sexually assaulted the 14-year-old against her will. He admitted to sexually assaulting her, has admitted in court for doing so, and was convicted of doing that. And she has no culpability in this matter whatsoever. She's 14 years old. How,
right.
How
But
can
she
a
did go
14-year-old
with she did
consent?
go with the 3 students voluntarily, and I think that's what the school is going to fall back on. The school says they're going to fight this lawsuit. They'll be vindicated. Blah 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 blah. They won't come on and talk about it. It's a sensitive subject because we have a 14-year-old girl here, and all of that. I understand, but. You're basically saying that the school is persecuting your client, the 14-year-old, for no reason at all, correct?
Well, she's 14 years old, so whether or not she went into that back room on her own is not the issue. What is the issue is what happened in that back room, and she certainly didn't consent to what happened in that back room. She can't consent. By law, the age of consent is 16. And so what they've decided to do is somehow point the finger at the 14-year-old and say that this is your fault that this happened. They stuck something in her file that says gross sexual misconduct. They suspended her for 5 days as a result of what happened. There's a number of other instances at this school of sexual assaults going on, and what I think they're concerned about is litigation, so from these other lawsuits, so they can, if something comes up in one of these other lawsuits and they bring up this act, they can say, well, listen, this wasn't our fault, it was her fault, and look, we put it in her file that it was gross sexual misconduct. But the bottom line is a 14-year-old can't consent. What if she was 10 years old? What if she was 9 years old, 8 years old, 11 years old? How did the school suddenly decide that the age of consent in Michigan is 14?
No, look, I mean, I think you're going to win your case. Number one, the substitute teacher falls asleep, so there's no supervision, okay? Number two, the police say this guy did it. He's convicted, as you pointed out. And number three, there doesn't seem to be any reason to go after the 14-year-old girl, and that brings me to my final question for you, Counselor. In your discussions, and I assume there have been some, with the school district, all right, have they given you any reason at all why they would take this action? If I were the chancellor or the principal, I would say, I'm not going to put that in her file. It doesn't serve any useful purpose.
Well, this is what happened. When the parents found out about this, they contacted the school. They discussed this with the school. They tried to meet with the school on numerous occasions to get this out of her file, and they refused to take it out. Why the school is doing this is beyond me. That's what is so absurd about this situation. That's why we've been getting so many calls from media, from newspapers, and shows such as yourself. It just simply doesn't make any sense for the school to do this.
And they haven't provided you with any rationale for it at all?
Well, what I think it is, in my personal opinion, is that it has something to do with insurance on their side. The insurance company wants to, in case of future litigation, to say, look, it's this girl's fault that this happened, and that's what I think it's all about.
I see.
And,
so they're setting themselves up that they weren't derelict in their duty, that they weren't culpable for the civil lawsuit that might follow. That makes sense, Counselor. Listen, we'll follow your case. We feel very bad for this young girl and her family, and thanks for coming on. When we come right back, you think President Bush would take a hit in the polls because of all this Clark stuff, but he seems to be getting stronger. We'll try to find out why when we come back.
Hello, everyone. I'm Donna Fiducia. President Bush has decided to let National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice testify publicly before the 9/11 Commission under oath. Mr. Bush and Vice President Cheney will also testify, but in private. And 1 soldier is killed and at least 1 other hurt in attacks on coalition troops in Iraq. Fox's David Piper in Baghdad with more.
There have been fresh attacks on U.S. forces here. In one incident, a U.S. soldier died in a roadside blast west of Baghdad.
And in another attack, a Humvee was left burning on the streets of Ramadi after it was apparently hit by a rocket-propelled grenade. 4 soldiers who were in the vehicle were seen being rushed away in another Humvee. A U.S. spokeswoman in Baghdad couldn't confirm the incident. Meanwhile, a military convoy was also attacked in the Abu Ghraib district of Baghdad. U.S. soldiers quickly arrived at the scene and secured the area. No casualties have been reported by the U.S. military. Meanwhile, Iraq's new police force is continuing to be targeted by the militants. A suicide car bomber drove his vehicle into a local police chief's house in Hilla today, destroying the building and killing himself. The police chief survived the attack, but he and his children had to be dug out of the rubble. In Baghdad, David Piper, Fox News.
David, thank you. More headlines coming your way at the top of the hour. I'm Donna Fiducia. The O'Reilly Factor continues right after this break, right here on the most powerful name in news, Fox News Channel.
A different generation needs a different kind of denture adhesive. C-Bond is a thin wafer made from soft microfibers for comfort and 3 adhesives for all-day hold. No ooze or pasty mess. And a kind of hold and comfort you have to feel to believe. C-Bond, a different generation. Slippery dentures? Don't crack up. The C-Bond bath has a special lock-on safety basket for secure handling.
Now, wherever your allergies strike, there's a non-drowsy medicine that lets you do something wonderful. Breathe again. Alivert Allergy and Sinus. It relieves sinus pressure, stops runny nose, and clears your nasal congestion so you can breathe again. Inside, outside, wherever you are. Get prescription-strength non-drowsy allergy and sinus relief even Claritin can't beat. Alivert Allergy and Sinus. The right relief, wherever you are. Alivert.
Think of it as an open-air roadster that can seat 7. The Cadillac SRX Performance SUV. Car and Driver's 2004 Best Luxury SUV. Cadillac, breakthrough.
Eliminate odors and leave even sports stuff fresh air clean with Febreze every day. Eliminate odors and leave the carpet fresh air clean with Febreze every day.
You're watching the #1 program on cable news. Enter the No Spin Zone on the O'Reilly Factor. The most powerful name in news, Fox News Channel.
Thanks for staying with us. I'm Bill O'Reilly in the Unresolved Problem segment tonight. As we told you at the top of the broadcast, the Richard Clark story is pretty much over. Most Americans believe it's politically motivated, even though Clark does have extensive knowledge about terrorism. But with all the publicity, you would think President Bush would have taken a hit in the polls, but he has not. The latest Gallup poll says that Mr. Bush has actually increased his lead over John Kerry. It now stands at 51 for Bush, 47 for Kerry. That's up 7 points for Mr. Bush in 3 weeks. Joining us now from Los Angeles is Patrick Cadell, a former Democratic strategist and pollster. And from D.C., Fox News political analyst Tony Snow. I was surprised. I thought Bush was going to take a hit in the polls, Tony. Were you surprised about this?
Well, I was a little bit surprised, Bill, but he actually did take a hit, believe it or not. If you looked at some of the day-by-day tracks, right after Richard Clark's original testimony, the race collapsed. And then as people began to form opinions about Clark, it began to broaden out again. As you pointed out, a lot of people now say they think he was in it to make a quick buck. And there are also a lot of questions about who Richard Clark really is, a guy who was a tough guy in the Clinton and Bush administrations, or somebody who became a partisan. There's one other wild card here, which is that John Kerry got off a vacation back on the stump. And I don't think that helped either. You put that together with some presidential ads, and I think all those factors together explain what's happening, which is the race that's broadening out.
After Jim Angle broke that huge story, and it was enormous, showing that Clark had praised Bush in 2002, which was really what turned the whole thing around. I mean, you got to give Angle a lot of credit. He was the only reporter who tape recorded the background, and then when it was declassified, he was able to use it. And that gave people concrete proof that Clark, you know, there was a good chance he was playing a political game. So that turned it around. However, Kerry, and I give him credit for this, didn't really run with the story. So he didn't get on. What he said was, I'm going to read the book. He didn't get on the bandwagon. What he concentrated on was why Condoleezza Rice wasn't testifying.
Right,
So
well,
I think Kerry played it pretty smart here.
Well, he played it pretty smart, but let me separate the two issues. Number one, Clark, he collapsed like a cheap tent absolutely right after the Engel story, because his answer to the 9/11 Commission is, hey, you know how Washington works? We lie. Well, that really
great.
That went over great. The Kerry thing is a separate phenomenon. You're right, he handled the Clark thing okay, but the fact is when he goes out on the stump, I think what he does is he drives people who don't like him crazy, and he doesn't really thrill those who do.
All right. Well, that's a partisan view, I think, Tony. I mean, we got to give the guy a little chance to warm up. What do you say, Pat? What do you say? Were you surprised, first of all, that Bush didn't take a bigger hit?
Well, not after I heard a little bit more. I think that sometimes we think the American people are. I think in Washington there's a view the American people are a lot stupider than they really are. And I think that you're right. The Jim Ingalls story had a devastating impact on Clark.
Tremendous.
It was tremendous. When people saw him get up there and testify and later say, as he said on Meet the Press and other things, well, you know, that's the way we do it in Washington. Basically, i.e., as Tony said, we just lie. The American people said, I mean, that just really turned them off. And the other thing was, I think there were some other things troubling people as well, which you had, you know, when you got this guy who doesn't resign, when, you know, he says it's the most important thing in the world. Instead, he's out praising Bush. And also, I think the American people clearly, from the polling numbers, refused to believe that 7 months of George Bush's administration was all to blame, and 8 years of Bill Clinton, there was no negative impact at all.
Yeah, well,
that didn't go over very well.
Yeah, but that's not what he said. Clark said that Clinton was accountable for some of the problems, but he was more engaged. Now, Tony, you do a radio show. You're a new Fox News radio guy, and you're talking to the folks as I am every day. Do you have a sense that the American public galvanized on this Clark story? Did they rapidly pay attention, or did they form their impressions based upon what they heard?
I think they formed it based on what they heard. Let's face it, even though I used to be a Sunday show host, those shows, they have a fairly narrow audience. It gets trumpeted in the Monday morning newspapers. But I think the one thing people heard over and over was the Engel story. And again, the response, I think you and Pat are absolutely right. I think that was devastating because suddenly it went from being a whistleblower of conscience to a Washington insider, maybe trying to settle scores. And, you know, people take a dim view of that kind of thing.
No, they do. I mean, Americans
think they thought he was on the make. I think, Bill, they thought he was on the make.
Yeah.
Making money out of this. And it was pretty clear to them. Americans are pretty suspicious about that.
Pat.
And the timing of this.
Pat, Simon & Schuster didn't book Clark on any show on the Fox News channel. No, none. Total shutout. What does that tell you? This is by far and away the most powerful news program in prime time and the most powerful cable network. They didn't even make a call over here.
That's amazing.
So I mean,
is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a matter of it might be a partisan bash Bush book. It is. And when people figured that out, then the 60 Minutes
when they backed off. The other thing, let me say this too. You do get a focus on something that people believe the president, you give him high marks for, which is how he's handled terrorism. To knock that down, to tear that down, and one guy come out and announce, oh, by the way, that's not true. That's a very hard thing to do. And by focusing on it, remember, that is something that people have a lot of confidence. So they may be down on the president about the economy or other issues, but on fighting the war on terrorism, they have a lot of confidence.
Okay, now, if John Kerry calls you tomorrow, Pat, and says, I want to hire you to do my polling and be an advisor, do you tell Kerry to go mano a mano with President Bush on the war on terror, or do you tell him?
Absolutely not.
Okay, go ahead.
Absolutely not. There's one thing, you know, you don't try to take somebody's strength away from them. I think that, and I think that John Kerry would have a hard time making a case that he'd be better on that than President Bush. You know, there are better issues for him to look at in terms of the economy and other things than to try to take the president on something the public has watched him intimately with and closely with, which is how he's handled something, you know, that involves their safety.
Okay.
Bill, I think Pat's absolutely right. I think Pat's absolutely right on this. It's one of the reasons why a lot of Republicans are secretly thrilled that Condi Rice is going to go to Capitol Hill. They think as long as the war on terror is front and center in the political screen, whether it be due to Richard Clark or Condoleezza Rice or anybody else, they think that helps. And you look at that Gallup poll, what was it, 57-29 in favor of the president on that?
Right.
I mean, that's
overwhelming. But Tony, I got to ask you this. What took the Bush administration so long to say, all right, Dr. Rice is going to go up? I mean, why wait 2 weeks and give the opposition all this ammo?
It's always like politics.
But there's also a procedural fight. The White House Office of Legal Counsel said, we don't do this sort of thing. And I think people looking at the poll said, we better learn how to do it. And finally, the people who were making the political point, they won.
I think they could have done it in 2 days rather than 2 weeks. All right, gentlemen. Always, I hope you guys will continue to be with us for the next 7 months. It's always good to have your analysis. We appreciate it. Next, is there a civil war within the Democratic Party right now? We will talk with a lifelong Democrat. Joseph Califano served under 3 Democratic presidents. He says the Democratic Party's changing. In a moment.
Your world, Fox News.
In a world where business can't make a move without a network, wouldn't it be great to have a network that can actually move your business? Because the right networking partner can do more than just move data. It can move people, products, and entire industries forward. Can your network do this? It can if it's designed by the world's networking company, AT&T.
Farmers Auto Insurance. Get you back where you belong.
So, you want to open a checking account?
Yes, but I don't want to pay for it.
Right. And you want online banking?
Right, if it's free.
And unlimited online bill paying?
I don't want to have to pay for that either.
No. So you want total security protection on your check card, free?
Look, I just don't think I should have to pay for any of it.
Neither do we.
Free checking plus with direct deposit from Bank of America. Higher standards.
The modern day antenna? Ugly. Cables already wired in. Prices that are too good to be true? Wow. They should list what you don't get. Cool technology? Cable's the future. 250 channels, local high-definition TV, video on demand, and high-speed internet service. Satellite just can't do that. Plus local service. Here, not in LA, not a car audio dealer. Call us anytime. We do cable. The grass isn't greener. Cable's truly better.
Do you want a beautiful yard but are tired of all the backbreaking work? Let Rexius transform your yard with no effort at all. We can spread your favorite mulch or compost in a smooth, finished application. And with our blown-in process, we can reach anywhere and turn a weekend job into just a couple of hours. Try our one-step terraceting service with soil and nutrients to rejuvenate your tired lawn, from the smallest to even the biggest lawns in as little as 2 weeks. So the answer is an easy one. When you want a beautiful yard, think Rexius.
Successful businessman Tim Phillips knows the best way to cut taxes is to control spending. In Congress, Phillips will fight for a hard cap on spending, audits to terminate obsolete programs, a 2-year federal budget to increase efficiency, and a commission to eliminate waste. And Tim Phillips will vote to make President Bush's tax cuts permanent. Less spending, lower taxes. Tim Phillips for Congress.
I'm Tim Phillips, and I approve this message because less spending means lower taxes.
In the back of the book segment tonight, Joseph Califano served under Presidents Kennedy, Johnson, and Carter. He's a lifelong Democrat. But in his new book, Inside, A Public and Private Life, Mr. Califano says that the Democratic Party has changed, and not for the better in some cases. He joins us now. You know, you have had a fascinating look at the political process. We had Karen Hughes on, who knows all the insides of the Republican Party, and you know all the inside of the Democratic Party. How has that party changed since JFK?
Well, I think, you know, the party of Roosevelt and Kennedy and Johnson was focused on jobs, on health care, on the minimum wage, on the economic issues that really drive middle America and poor America. And Johnson focused it also on civil rights, but civil rights very much focused on black Americans and what they'd been through. They couldn't get a good education, as you recall. They couldn't go to the same John you and I went to. They couldn't sit at the same lunch counter. What we've had now, in 1972, as I write about it in the book, when I was the counsel for the Democratic Party, Larry O'Brien was the chairman, the Democratic Party went deep into all these cultural issues. That was the first political convention that dealt with abortion.
Right.
That dealt with legalizing marijuana. I mean, we had smoke-ins in Miami.
But why did they do that? Why did they shift the tactic from civil rights and representing the working man?
Why did both, I don't know, why did both parties do that? I mean, look at what we have today. We have a litmus test in the Democratic Party. You've got to be pro-choice. We got a litmus test in the Republican Party. If you want to be a presidential candidate, you've got to be pro-life.
Not really. Giuliani could run on a Republican ticket.
Bill, in the real world of those parties, and how much time do you think a president spends on that issue over 4 years? A few hours?
Zero.
A few hours. We shouldn't have tests like that.
But why? But see, I don't know why I think there's a split in the Democratic Party. There are the Lieberman Democrats, which are much more conservative on cultural issues, and then there are the bomb throwers on the left who get all the attention and who have the money. And Kerry's kind of caught in the middle of these two.
Well, I hope and I believe that Kerry will focus on the economic issues, that he'll focus on jobs, that he'll focus on...
Yeah, but the Republicans are going to demonize him as a crazy left-winger. You know what the Republicans are going to do.
Sure, but he's not a crazy left-winger. Come on, he's not a crazy left-winger. I think he is more in the tradition, certainly more in the tradition of Lyndon Johnson and John Kennedy and FDR than George McGovern was, for example.
All right. Now,
all right.
You have in your book a very cute story about Hillary Clinton calling you a dirty name. Because I want you to sell some books here, Joe. I know, I mean, it's hard enough to sell books, but this is a great story. No. Now, you're a nice guy. I've known you forever. I would never call you a dirty name, but Hillary did.
Well, wait a minute. I was representing Coca-Cola. They owned a lot of groves for Minute Maid, and it was a big investigation, classic Washington investigation, in the Senate caucus room, chairman of Coca-Cola coming down to have the committee take him apart on how you're treating the migrant workers. 1970, the ultimate anti-establishment summer in Washington, demonstrations on the war, everything. The caucus room was jammed with young people. I walked down this center aisle with Paul Austin, the two of us. Never felt such animosity in a room in my life. And this woman a young girl comes up with thick rimmed glasses and says, "You..."
Don't say it. It's really a bad name.
You sold out.
But you used a real bad name. Now, I'm not going to tell you. I want you to read Califano's book here. But it was a really bad name. It was a ludicrous bad name.
Now wait a minute. But a year and a half later, I'm sitting in my office at Williams, Connolly, and Califano, and I didn't know who this young woman was. And Hillary Rodham comes in for an interview for a job. And she never mentioned, I never mentioned. I offered her a job. She had a fantastic record.
You offered her a job even though she called you that name?
Yes, and she said, "I'm going to," and she said, "You think about it," and then she called and said, "I'm going to Arkansas."
Oh, yeah. So she turned
And I said, "Why would anyone go to Arkansas?"
Now, just the fact that she called you that dirty name, I have more respect for her now than I did because it was a pretty colorful story. All right, the book is called Inside, A Public and Private Life. Joe Califano knows everything about politics in this country, and I recommend the book very highly. Thanks for coming in.
And a lot about being a Catholic in public life is in that book, Bill.
Okay.
It's not easy.
Another incentive to read.
It's not easy.
Next, we will wrap things up with the most ridiculous item in some of your mail.
From humble beginnings, he became one of the most powerful men of all time. Wars were waged in his name, yet his teachings were meant to inspire peace. Now, in a Fox in Focus special, we trace his footsteps back to the origin, how he lived, what he preached, and how one man continues to change the course of history. Join me as we travel back to the holiest sites to find out who is Jesus. A Fox in Focus special Sunday.
It's time to end your relationship.
With department store prices, come to the Burlington Coat Factory Easter Savings Event where you can get everything for way less. We've got the greatest selection of boy suits and girls' dresses and the latest in designer fashions for the whole family, all up to 60% off. Because happiness means never having to pay department store prices. The Easter Savings Event at Burlington Coat Factory, where saving is always in style.
In the next 2 years, a voluntary drug benefit will be added to Medicare. What does it mean for you? Lower drug costs with a discount card that reduces prices 10 to 25%. But that's just the beginning. When the law is fully implemented, the typical senior without drug coverage could have their out-of-pocket costs reduced by 50% or more. Lower-income seniors won't pay more than $5 for a prescription, and all seniors will have peace of mind knowing their catastrophic drug costs will be covered. Learn more today. Call 1-800-MEDICARE.
That's it. Thank you, everyone.
Really great loan offers.
Remember, no points.
Okay.
Bye.
We'll let you know.
I think we got some pretty good mortgage offers there.
Yeah. Of course, we still need to pick a realtor.
The realtors. Sorry about that, guys.
We got a forfeit. Now you can find a mortgage and a realtor all in one place. At LendingTree.com, you fill out one form and choose the mortgage and the realtor that's right for you. LendingTree.com.
Viewer email is brought to you by LendingTree.com. When banks compete, you win.
Time now for the most ridiculous item of the day. Janet Jackson back in the public eye. She's trying to sell a new album, so last night she appeared on the David Letterman broadcast in an outfit that might cause frostbite up in Maine. Who is dressing this woman? Miss Jackson was also bleeped during her conversation about that Super Bowl incident with Justin Timberlake.
Now, he kind of went Weasley on you and said, no, I had nothing to do with this. It was not my deal. I didn't know what was going on.
That's what I heard.
Now, did he know what was going on?
No, it wasn't supposed to happen the way that it did.
But, you know, it looked like it was supposed to happen that way.
Oh, you're not going to let me...
Well, the word bleeped was Jesus. Now, why that was bleeped, I'm not quite sure. You can decide whether or not it's ridiculous. Who is dressing that woman? And finally tonight, the Mail, a surprising number of people continue to support mothers who brutally kill their kids. Betty Elms, Squim, Washington, O'Reilly. What does it feel like to be as ignorant as you? Your comment that Andrea Yates is purely evil is dumb. She has been diagnosed as being bipolar. You should empathize with the mentally ill. What Yates did was evil, Miss Elms. It was evil, okay, what she did. Your empathy is wasted, I believe. Yates got what she deserved. Ann Borgeson, Grafton, Massachusetts. Bill, your judgment of the Texas woman who stoned her 2 children to death is quite unfair. Mental illness can strike anyone without warning. It is not something a person can control. Rod Russo, Scottsdale, Arizona. Bill, how do you know that God didn't order that Texas woman to kill her children? I know the sun's hot there in the Valley of the Sun, Mr. Russo, but it's not that hot. Get a grip, sir. Dr. Syed Anwar, Beaumont, Texas. Mr. O'Reilly, your segment about Pakistan was atrocious. Here's a country trying its best to rid itself of terrorism. If you don't have anything good to say, it's always best to keep your mouth closed. Then I'd be out of business, Doctor. This is an up with people here. You know what I'm talking about? By most independent accounts, the recent Pakistani campaign against al-Qaeda was a fiasco. We are obligated to report that, sir. Charlie Gray, Palm Desert, California. Mr. O, what actual proof do you have? Gives you the right to state that Michael Jackson is a sexual pervert. Well, you missed the dialogue, Mr. Gray. Geraldo asked me why the boy in the first Jackson molestation case would want to testify in this one. I answered his question with another question. To take a pervert off the street? Check it out. Brian Lusk, Chicago. Bill is an African-American. I find it disturbing that your guest criticizing Yusef Jackson's attempt to buy the Sun-Times could not raise a single valid reason for his objection. I'm no supporter of Jesse Jackson, but is it possible his disapproval is rooted in bias? Not in my opinion, Mr. Lusk. Some Americans simply feel that the Jackson family has acquired money and power in dubious ways. I believe the objection to obtaining even more power is rooted in that belief. Nothing racial about it. Joe Stillman, Salinas, California. O'Reilly, you noted that CNN often has an agenda, hardly news. The fascinating part is how anyone at Fox could throw agenda stones. Do you think all of us are stupid? Now, I'm tempted to say, no, just you, Joe. But that would be unfair and wrong. However, if you want to throw a bomb at us, you might want to back it up with an example or two, or else someone might think you have an agenda. And how about that website where there is no agenda in play? www.foxnews.com/O'Reilly. Now, spring is coming. And we have brand new Factor gear to honor the soft season of spring. So check it out on www.foxnews.com/O'Reilly. And my column there on how some left-wing journalists may have been coaching John Kerry. You might want to read that. You can access that on our website and go to BillO'Reilly.com. Now, BillO'Reilly.com poll question, will Kobe Bryant get off? About 25,000 of you voted. 24% say no. 76% think Bryant's going to be acquitted. Please email us with pithy comments. O'Reilly at FoxNews.com. O'Reilly at FoxNews.com. Name and town if you wish to opine. No bloviating, please. That's it for us today. As always, thank you for watching The Factor. Radio Factor is streamed every day on BillO'Reilly.com. Hannity and Combs is next. Alexander Haig reacts to the White House's decision to let Condoleezza Rice testify. I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us. Remember, the spin stops here because we are looking out for you.
Next on